Now, we're going to go over Ezra chapter 7 and 8, and I want to make sure everybody knows where we are here in Ezra. Because the Bible can be, if you don't really study it, you can get lost as to what the time frame is, what has happened before, what's yet to happen. So let's take a look at this. I just thought it would be a good idea to see. There's that button, if it works. Yeah. Okay. Now this is all in Genesis here. A lot of this stuff, a lot of the historical stuff really is in Genesis. It starts out with creation, Adam and Eve. Adam dies. Noah's born. There's the flood, the Tower of Babel. All this stuff is in Genesis, early on in Genesis actually. Abraham is called, Jacob is born. Joseph goes to Egypt. Okay, and then it ends up that all of his brothers and his father and their families end up in Egypt, and they multiply greatly. And then they get overtaken into slavery here in Egypt. And then they get delivered out of the Exodus. Okay, then we got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy done by here. Okay, and then Joshua is next. He leads them into the land, and then they conquer. He's with them while they conquer part of it. Then we go into the era of the judges. And you know guys like Gideon and Samson. And right after the time of the judges, we start going into Samuel. Now, Samuel precedes the time of the kings. As a matter of fact, Samuel anoints the first king, being Saul, and also anoints David. All right, now we have Israel united under David, and then united under Solomon, and he builds that temple. David designs the temple. Solomon builds it, and then Solomon does a bunch of stuff he shouldn't have done. Okay? He breaks the Torah, and he does some stuff that kings aren't supposed to do, that regular people aren't supposed to do. And there's a curse on the people. When the king's in disarray, oftentimes the people are in disarray also, and they were. So Elohim split the kingdom up. There's the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And this happens at about 980 BC. Okay, a long time ago, but we've come a long way from here. You know, it's about 4000 BC, maybe a little bit before, so we've already covered 3,000 years. Now, in this northern kingdom, they're split and they hate each other, all right? You have a northern kingdom of Israel, southern kingdom of Judah. Now, this is some of the kings that they had here, and they may not mean much to you, except you maybe heard of Ahab, but this is also, in this northern kingdom, there was Elijah and Elisha. Okay, and then we also get the prophets of Jonah, Obadiah, Amos, and Hosea. And they're all warning this northern kingdom, turn back to the Torah. You know, you have all kinds of problems here when you split, because Judah has the temple, and it has the place where offerings are done. So what are they going to do during the feast days if you're in the northern kingdom? Yeah, but the king of the northern kingdom doesn't want them to go. He's afraid they'll go there and stay. So he builds his own false places to do these things. One in Bethel, and I forgot where the other one was. Samaria is where the other one was. So he has two places to go. You can go to the place of your convenience. And they end up getting the days wrong. It was worse than an argument over the calendar. It was bad. And these guys are all warning them. Jonah, Obadiah, Amos, Hosea, you need to turn back to the Torah. Well, it didn't happen. And all these kings they had in the northern kingdom of Israel, bad. Not one stinking good king among them. Not one of them that was any good at all. None. And there was more than just these guys, but they just list some of them there. No good kings. The people aren't doing good. And then if they all say, oh, and he also followed the sins of Jeroboam. Well, the sin of Jeroboam was to put those cities up there for them to worship somewhere else. Okay, and do offerings somewhere else and end up worshiping false gods. So he brings the nation of Assyria to destroy them. And that's in 721 BC. Now, in the meantime, in a parallel way, we have the kingdom of Judah. Now, and later on, the people from Judah were called Jews. So, and that's why, because this was just Judah, some Benjamites too. But we go on here, the different kings, and you may remember Ahaz or Hezekiah, but we have prophets for the southern kingdom during this time, Joel, Isaiah, and Micah. And then we keep going here until the time of the Babylonian destruction, where the southern kingdom now, they're in rebellion against the Father, and they're getting warned. And we have Nahum, Zephaniah, Habakkuk, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel and Daniel, all about this time of the Babylonian captivity. So they're in the Babylonian captivity for 70 years. And then Cyrus comes up. Remember hearing that name? We went over it in Ezra. And Cyrus, by the way, 150 to 200 years earlier, the prophet Isaiah said this King Cyrus is going to send them back after they're in captivity. It's 150, 200 years before it happened. Named him twice. So he tells them to go back after the 70 years. And some of them do. Not very many of them do. The temple's getting rebuilt. So we're here about 520 to 516 BC, and during the time of Haggai and Zechariah, and Ezra and Nehemiah. And also at this time, we're toward the end of Chronicles is about the end. 2 Chronicles and 2 Kings. And we're about at the end of the Tanakh. The Tanakh ends at about 400 BC, and you can see we're just about 100 years away from it. So this is where we are in Ezra. Are there any questions on that? That makes sense? Okay. With that being the case, you see how much of Scripture we have behind us and what we have ahead of us. And I've been told before, well, I'm glad you went over so-and-so. So I used to think that Israel went into sin, and they went into captivity, and they got released. And then they went into captivity, and then they got released. Then they went in captivity, and then they got released. Just when you take a little bit over here, and you read that, and then a little bit over there, and read that, a little bit in the middle, and read that, it can be confusing. And the Bible is not in chronological order. It is not in chronological order. So, but it's a heck of a fun journey. Let's go to Ezra 7, verse 1. Now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, and if anyone has any questions, that is not Artaxerxes. I looked it up. I memorized it. It's Artaxerxes. And he did not have neurocysticercosis. That as far as I know. But I can say both words. Very happy. In the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, there went up Ezra, son of Sariah, son of Azariah, son of Hilkiah. Well, now after these things, that's after the events of chapter 6. During the reign of Artaxerxes, the text says that Ezra was the son of Sariah. Now Sariah was the high priest when Jerusalem fell to the Babylonians. Sariah was executed by Nebuchadnezzar, but his son Jehozadak was taken captive. That's in 1 Chronicles 6, starting at verse 13. And Shallum became the father of Hilkiah, and Hilkiah became the father of Azariah. And Azariah became the father of Sariah, and Sariah became the father of Jehozadak. And Jehozadak went along when Yahweh carried Judah and Jerusalem away into exile by Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Ezra was the son of Jehozadak, and he was a grandson of Sariah. You know, it says he was a father, that Sariah was his father. There's a funny thing about the Hebrew language, though. There's no word in the Hebrew language for grandson. Not really. Not unless you make one up. It's just a son. Okay? So that's why, well, was Yeshua a son of David? Well, not directly. And we're talking 1,000 years later. But he is a son of David. And there was a lot of that. So when you see someone is the son of somebody, you very well could have, another generation or two in between there. You can't just haphazardly slip some in there. But if there's some indication that that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly okay in the language. Let's just say it means descendant. Yeah.
Is that like the Matthew account?
Yes. Yeah, there's several missing. Yeah, it's a moot point. Yeah. The intention wasn't to draw every person in the line out. There in Matthew in particular. Well, here we go. Verse 2, son of Shallum, son of Zadok, son of Ahitub, son of Amariah, son of Azariah, son of Meraioth, son of Zerahiah, son of Uzi, son of Buki, son of Abishua, son of Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the chief priest. This is an abbreviated genealogy of Ezra, which shows he is a descendant of Aaron, the high priest. Therefore, he qualifies to be a high priest. This genealogy for this type of thing is very, very important. Verse 6, then Ezra went up from Babylon, and he was a scribe skilled in the Torah of Moses, which Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, had given. And the king granted him all he requested, because the hand of Yahweh, his Elohim, was upon him. It says that Ezra was a scribe skilled in the Torah of Moses, which Elohim gave the people. So important. Moses was just the middleman. He was just the guy handed off to him to hand off to us. He didn't make it up. Now, it says he's skilled in the Torah of Moses, which Elohim gave his people. That doesn't mean he was only skilled in writing and in knowledge of the Torah. He was skilled in expounding upon it and teaching it. Since the hand of Elohim was upon him, the king granted him everything he requested. Now, we're not told precisely what Ezra requested, but it was probably to give him permission and authority in going to Jerusalem. Verse 7. And some of the sons of Israel and some of the priests, the Levites, the singers, the gatekeepers, and the temple servants went up to Jerusalem in the 7th year of King Artaxerxes. And he came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. And for on the first of the first month, he began to go up from Babylon, and on the first of the 5th month he came to Jerusalem, because the good hand of Elohim was upon him. So Ezra left Babylon in the 1st month and arrived in Jerusalem on the 5th month. Now, and you can see why. See, this this is not exactly a 2-day walk here. So, and I'm sure he had supplies, family, and so forth with him. Verse 10, for Ezra had set his heart to study the Torah of Yahweh and to practice it and to teach his statutes and ordinances in Israel. So Ezra had his heart set to study, practice, and the teaching of the Torah of Elohim. The Torah of the Father is the most precious thing that a person can have. We read in Psalm 19, starting at verse 7, the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of Yahweh are true, they are righteous altogether. They're more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them your servant is warned. In keeping them there's great reward. Is there any doubt that the author of Psalm 19 absolutely loved the Torah of the Father more than anything else in the world? We read in Psalm 119, starting at verse 96. I've seen a limit to all perfection. Your commandment is exceedingly broad. Oh, how I love your Torah. It is my meditation all the day. Your commandments make me wiser than my enemies, for they are forever mine. I have more insight than all my teachers, for your testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the aged, because I have observed your precepts. You know, Yeshua spoke of the importance of the Torah of the Father also. In Matthew 5, starting at verse 17, do not think that I came to abolish the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. And just real quick, I always have to touch on this. The word we translate as fulfill is the Greek word plerou. It means to fill up. It never means to abolish or put an end to. It means to fill up. When Yeshua told the disciples to throw their nets out, and they got so many fish that the boat was plerou. It's the word that's used there. Filled up. Okay? That doesn't mean the boat was abolished. All right? This doesn't mean that either. It really means to fill up, to make replete. And that word for abolish there, it really doesn't mean abolish, it means deplete. He said, I didn't come to deplete the Torah, but to fill it up, to make it replete. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass away from the Torah until all is accomplished. And what he is saying here, obviously, nothing's ever going to change. He said there have been a lot of guys that came into the fold here that have taken control, and they've been depleting the Torah. They've been depleting its meaning. They've been depleting its purpose, and they're using it for their own power source. And that was, Yeshua said, I'm not here to help them. He said in verse 19, whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and so teaches others shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, or least by the kingdom of heaven. That's the Greek preposition. Could go either way. The way it really reads is, whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and so teaches others shall be called least by those in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great by those in the kingdom of heaven. It's really what that means. A lot of people think, well, you know, if I don't really follow the Torah, I'm still going to sneak into the kingdom. I'm just going to be least. No, that's not what this means. Okay? It's not what this means. For I say to you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoo, you really think you can obey the Torah better than the scribes and Pharisees? You know, they really know it. Yeah, they know it. They also know how to twist it. They also know how to use it to their advantage. They also know how to add to it and detract from it. Kelsey had mentioned to me a few weeks ago, she said, Torah, the great thing about Torah is this. It is what it is. It is the same for everybody. You can't take it and use it to your advantage over somebody else. You can't. Because it is what it is. It's the same for everybody. And it does things like, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and on that day nobody's going to do any work. Not you or your manservants, your maidservants, the beasts. You know what that means? There's one day out of every 7, everybody is equal. Everybody is equal. The king is no better than the slave. One day out of 7. What a great concept. What a great concept. She's right. Kelsey was right. But now, if you add to it or take away from it, okay, and you end up with 40,000 different denominations, how do you tell what's right and what's wrong? You go to Reverend Lovejoy. He's got all the power, but he only wants 10% of your money, okay? And if you add to it or take away from it, that's what the Pharisees were doing. And they're doing it for their own power. For their own power. Remember, Yeshua said, you got these things, you know, you can give money to the temple fund, which is in your pocket, and then you don't have to give it to your mom and dad. Therefore, honoring your mom and dad in their old age, totally irrelevant. And you do a lot of things like that. Mark 7, Matthew 15. Look it up. Let's go back to Ezra 7, verse 11. Now this is a copy of the decree which King Artaxerxes gave to Ezra the priest, the scribe, learned in the words of the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes to Israel. It is again noted that Ezra was learned in the words of the commandments and statutes that Elohim gave to Israel. Artaxerxes gave Ezra a copy of the decree that gives generous support to the people of Judah. Verse 12, Artaxerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest, the scribe of the Torah of the Elohim of heaven, perfect peace. And now I've issued a decree that any of the people of Israel and their priests and the Levites, in my kingdom, who are willing to go to Jerusalem, may go with you. For as much as you are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the Torah of your Elohim, which is in your hand. The king had 7 counselors who were his chief assistants, who possessed many privileges. See there in verse 14, for as much as you are sent by the king and his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem. The interesting thing about this is, and Misty just brought it up a few minutes ago, they're mentioned in Esther, the book of Esther also, which is taking place during this same time period. In Esther 1, verses 13 and 14, then the king said to the wise men who understood the times, for it was the custom of the king, so to speak, before all who knew law and justice, and were close to him, Karshida, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Merez, Marsina, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media who had access to the king's presence and sat in the first place in the kingdom. See, we're dealing with the same people at about the same time. Ezra 7, verse 15. And to bring the silver and gold which the king and his counselors have freely offered to the Elohim of Israel, whose dwelling is in Jerusalem, with all the silver and gold which you'll find in the whole province of Babylon, along with the freewill offering of the people and of the priests, who offered willingly for the house of their Elohim which is in Jerusalem. With this money, therefore, you shall diligently buy bulls, rams, and lambs, with their grain offerings and their libations, and offer them on the altar of the house of your Elohim which is in Jerusalem. Now we're told in chapter 8 the amount of gold and silver given to Ezra by the king that's supposed to be used in service to the temple, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. Verse 18, and whatever seems good to you and to your brothers to do with the rest of the silver and gold, you may do according to the will of your Elohim. Also the utensils which are given to you for the service of the house of your Elohim, deliver in full before the Elohim of Jerusalem. And the rest of the needs for the house of your Elohim, for which you may have occasion to provide for it from the royal treasury. King Artaxerxes gave Judah access to the king's treasury on the side of the Euphrates River to be used according to the will of Elohim. You know, he's not giving them all the treasury, but that on that side of the Euphrates, which is a lot. Verse 21, and I, even I, King Artaxerxes, issue a decree to all the treasurers who in the provinces beyond the river, that whatever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the Torah of the Elohim of heaven, may require of you, it shall be done diligently, even up to 100 talents of silver, 100 cores of wheat, 100 baths of wine, 100 baths of oil, and salt as needed. Okay, just to translate for you, 100 talents of silver, it's about 3 3/4 tons. 100 cores of wheat, that's about 600 bushels. 1 bath is equivalent to 6 gallons. So 100, that's 600 gallons of wine. Noah'd be proud. Verses 23 and 24. Whatever is commanded by the Elohim of heaven, let it be done with zeal for the house of the Elohim of heaven, lest there be wrath against the kingdom of the king and his sons. We also inform you that it is not allowed to impose tax, tribute, or toll on any of the priests, Levites, singers, doorkeepers, Nethinim, or servants of this house of Elohim. So the king commands that whatever the Elohim of heaven commands, let it be done with zeal. All who ministered or worked in the temple are not allowed to be taxed. And they get everything they want from the treasury. Oh, and you can't tax them. Verse 25, and you, Ezra, according to the wisdom of your Elohim, which is in your hand, appoint magistrates and judges that they may judge all the people who are in the province beyond the river, even all those who know the Torah of your Elohim, and you may teach anyone who is ignorant of them. You know, and this is that decree by Artaxerxes. And Cliff was asking, was he obedient to the Torah? Well, sure does sound like it, doesn't it? He said to Ezra, now appoint judges who know the Torah to rule in the land. These judges are going to rule in the land. Look at this in Deuteronomy 16, starting in verse 18. You shall appoint for yourself judges and officers in all your towns, which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you according to your tribes. They shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not distort justice. You shall not be partial. You shall not take a bribe. For a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. Justice and only justice you shall pursue, that you may live and possess the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. Verse 26, and whoever will not observe the Torah of your Elohim and the Torah of the king, let judgment be executed upon him strictly, whether for death or for banishment or for confiscation of goods or for imprisonment. So Judah is given authority to fully rule according to the Torah of Elohim, including all judgments of banishment or execution.
Basically, he's instituted the Torah as the land
The Torah is the law of the land.
for this area.
Yeah. Verse 27, blessed be Yahweh, the Elohim of our fathers, who's put such a thing as this in the king's heart. Well, I'd say. To adorn the house of Yahweh, which is in Jerusalem, and has extended loving kindness to me before the king and his counselors, before all the king's mighty princes. Thus I was strengthened according to the hand of Yahweh my Elohim upon me, and I gathered leading men from Israel to go up with me. You know, Elohim is giving them a picture of the kingdom. Here is what he's doing. It's a microcosm of what the kingdom's going to be like. When it says in Scripture you're going to have a new heavens and a new earth, that's what it means. It doesn't mean the earth's going to go boom and the heavens are going to flame up and then he's going to take his hands and he's going to mold a new earth. And no, that's not what that means. What's going to happen is that means that Torah is going to be the law of the land, and the people from all over the world and say, why don't we go up to that mountain on Jerusalem so we can learn the Torah of the Father? That's what that means. That's what a new heavens and a new earth is. Now, Ezra knew that Elohim put these things in the heart of King Artaxerxes. He felt strengthened knowing that Elohim is in complete control of this situation. Chapter 8. Now, these are the heads of their fathers' households and the genealogical enrollment of those who went up with me from Babylon in the reign of King Artaxerxes. Of the sons of Phinehas, Gershom. Of the sons of Ithamar, Daniel. Of the sons of David, Hattush. Of the sons of Shechaniah, who was of the sons of Perosh, Zechariah with him, 150 males who were in the genealogical list. And the sons of Pahath Moab, Eliahonai, the son of Zariah, and 200 males with him. Notice I said that one quick, so you couldn't catch it if I said it wrong. Now, this is a list of those who traveled from Babylon with Ezra. And all these guys, and then there's all these guys, and then there's verse 15. Now I assembled them at the river that runs to Ahava, where we camped for 3 days, and I observed the people and the priests. I did not find any Levites there. You know, interesting thing, the Levites, none of them wanted to return. In the first wave of people returning, there were only 74 Levites chosen to return. 4,289 priests, but only 74 Levites. Verse 16, so I sent for Eliezer, Ariel, Shemaiah, Elnathan, Jerib, Elnathan, Nathan, Zechariah, and Meshullam, leading men, and for Joarib and Elnathan, teachers. And I sent them to Iddo, the leading man at the place of Casiphia. And I told him what to say to Iddo and his brothers, the temple servants, at the place Cassiphia, that is, to bring ministers to us for the house of our Elohim. 38 Levites and 220 servants responded to Ezra's call to enlist and return to Judah. Verse 18, and according to the good hand of our Elohim upon us, they brought us a man of insight of the sons of Mali, the son of Levi, the son of Israel, namely Sherebiah and his sons and brothers, 18 men, and Hashabiah and Yeshaiah of the sons of Merari, with his brothers and their sons, 20 men, and 220 of the temple servants whom David and the princes had given for the service of the Levites, all of them designated by name. See, Elohim changed the hearts of those he wanted to return. That's what he did. Now, the rest of them, were they in disobedience for not going back? Yeah, but Elohim didn't choose them. Had he chosen them, they'd have done it. Verse 21, then I proclaimed a fast there at the river of Ahava, that we might humble ourselves before our Elohim, him, a safe journey for us, our little ones, and all our possessions. For I was ashamed to request from the king troops and horsemen to protect us from the enemy on the way, because we had said to the king, the hand of our Elohim is favorably disposed to all those who seek him, but his power and his anger are against all those who forsake him. So we fasted and sought our Elohim concerning this matter, and he listened to our entreaty. They fasted in praying to Elohim in order to humble themselves. Ezra did not want to ask the king for protection, because he told the king that Elohim will look upon them favorably. Verse 24, then I set apart 12 of the leading priests, Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and with them 10 of their brothers, and I weighed out to them the silver, the gold, and the utensils, the offering for the house of our Elohim, which the king and his counselors and his princes and all Israel present there had offered. Now the king and his counselors and princes in Israel had all given them great wealth to take with them. And we're going to find out how much here. Thus I weighed into their hands 650 talents of silver, and silver utensils worth 100 talents, 100 gold talents, and 20 gold bowls worth 1,000 derricks, and 2 utensils of fine, shiny bronze, precious as gold. Okay, now silver, 24.4 tons of silver utensils, and of gold the equivalent of 120,000 ounces, or 3 3/4 tons. 1,000 derricks has the equivalent value of 18.6 pounds or so of gold. Verse 28, then I said to them, you're holy to Yahweh, and the utensils are holy, and the silver and the gold are a freewill offering to Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers. Watch and keep them until you weigh them before the leading priests, the Levites, and the heads of the fathers' households of Israel at Jerusalem, in the chambers of the house of Yahweh. So the priests and the Levites accepted the weighed out silver and gold and the utensils to bring them to Jerusalem, to the house of our Elohim. Then we journeyed from the river Ahava on the 12th of the first month to go to Jerusalem, and the hand of our Elohim was over us, and he delivered us from the hand of the enemy and the ambushes by the way. Thus we came to Jerusalem and remained there 3 days. And on the 4th day the silver and the gold and the utensils were weighed out in the house of our Elohim into the hand of Meremoth the son of Uriah the priest. And with him was Eleazar the son of Phinehas. And with them were the Levites, Jozabad the son of Yeshua, and Noadiah the son of Benui. Everything was carefully accounted for from what was given to them. Everything was accounted for. And lastly, verse 34, everything was numbered and weighed. All the weight was recorded at that time. The exiles who had come from captivity offered burnt offerings to the Elohim of Israel. 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 lambs, 12 male goats for a sin offering, all as a burnt offering to Yahweh. Then they delivered the king's edicts to the king's satraps and to the governors in the provinces beyond the river, and they supported the people and the house of Elohim. And that's where we're stopping tonight. Any thoughts, any questions?
Where was all of this gold being transported from what location?
Apparently from Babylon.
That's a long ways.
That's a long ways.
And a lot of weight.
Yeah, and a lot of weight. That's correct. And, of course, I wouldn't want to be somebody who pilfered a little bit of that. That just sounds like the most unwise thing in the world to me. Okay, let's pray and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. It's truly a wonderful gift you've given to us. And we know that everything that was written from the past was written for our benefit, and we praise your name for that. And may Yahweh bless us and keep us. And may Yahweh make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. And may Yahweh lift up his countenance upon us and give us shalom. Amen.